You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. Hello and welcome to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast, Nottinghamshire Live. My name is Matt Davis and I'm here with our latest end of season special. I'd like to be joined by former Reds midfielder Gary Mills. Gary, hello, how are you?
Good evening, very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Well, I'm not too bad, thank you. I suppose it's a bit boring to start at the beginning, but I think it's probably where we should start with you because you've been in the game. Well, I mean, you're not that old, but you've been in the game for quite a while, haven't you?
Nearly slipped up straight away there, didn't you?
Yeah,
I have. But it's what my life's been. You know, it's been lovely. It's been great, and still enjoying it. You know, still enjoy being part of it. Lucky enough to be given the talent, if that's the right word, at an early age to go and be part of what was a success, and you know, just sort of put my stamp on what I feel is the right way to do things later on in management. But yeah, it's been great. It's been a great life in football, to be honest.
I mean, your career effectively started at the age of 14, really. You were playing reserve team football for Forest at that age. How did you end up playing, being picked up by Forest and being chucked in so young? How did that all come about?
Well, I think as always back in those days, you had scouts all around the country looking for young talent, and it was just a park game for my club, Long Buckby, who I was playing for at the time, who I played from the ages of 11 to 16. That somebody tapped me on the shoulder, a fella by the name of Nick Turner, who was the scout for Forest, and just asked me if my mum and dad were at the game, and I said yes. And he said, "Can you take me to your mum and dad?" Which is what I'd done. And he just said, "I'm from Nottingham Forest. I would like your son to come for a trial at Nottingham Forest." And I was 13 at the time when that happened. So it was a bit special. It was a special words to my ears, and you know, something that you dream of. Football had been my life. My dad had been a professional all his life in Northampton Town. I grew up with football. I used to sleep with a football in my bed. Football was all I ever wanted to do, and you know, to be asked to go on trial at a professional football club who was second division side at the time, didn't really matter. It was a case of, you know, getting the opportunity to go. So that's how it started, and eventually went on trial up at Forest.
When you speak to players, like I spoke to Steve Chettle and Gary Birtles and people like that, about their upbringing in the game and those early days, and it sounds, you know, a tough character building experience. What was it like for you when you're that young, mixing with, you know, some grizzled pros playing in the reserves before you even get your first team chance? So what were those early days like?
Incredible, absolutely incredible. I've gone from being a young player with dreams of being a professional footballer to almost being told, when I was told, that I was going to be a professional from the age of 13, 14. Forest were incredible to me. They made me feel a man. They turned me into a man. You know, I mean, as we know, the gaffer joined Forest in 75, and it's the same year that I got asked to come on trial. And from that moment onwards, you know, the gaffer would say to me, and hopefully I sound quite a bit like him, but he went, "You might as well learn at 14, son, than 24. So start listening to what I'm going to tell you, and you'll become a player, son. I think you can play. And just things like that, Matt, that made you feel special, made you feel talented, gave you confidence. It was all geared to turning me into the player that I become at the age of 16. But you know, I'd obviously from 14, 15, I played for England schoolboys, and everything was just going crazy for me. It was playing in Forest Reserves at 14, which is the old Central League. So the older brigade that are listening to this and will know what a tough league that was. I was a young boy that watched Match of the Day and your Old Traffords and Anfields and Main Roads and all these lovely, lovely grounds that at 14 I was turning out on a Saturday afternoon, because you used to play when the first team were away. You used to play the reserve games on the main pitch, in the stadium. So I was playing at Old Trafford at the age of 14, and it was almost like, is this real? But the gaffer had a way about him that he didn't want me to feel, oh, this is like lovely, this is a dream, he used to roll at me so much that it just turned me into the man that I was. And I know this might sound a bit daft now. I look at 16-year-olds now, but I felt a man at 16. I felt massive part of what Forest were at 16, and when I did join them at 16, obviously they'd just become league champions of the first division and going on to play into Europe. But I felt part of it, and I didn't feel overawed by it at all. I just felt part of it. It was an incredible time for me, and one that I'd love to go back to, because it was such a special time. My club, Long Buckby, we had a good side. We had a real good side. Good players. That some of the lads went on trial at professional clubs. Alan Carilla, who played, a lad called Alan Carilla, his dad used to play with my dad up at Northampton. John, that he went to Birmingham, he signed for Birmingham. So there's a few of us that got scattered around professional clubs, that we were such a good junior side that won a national trophy called the Umbro Cup back then. Everything was just going great, playing at Wembley for England schoolboys, scoring at Wembley for England schoolboys. Just a special, special time, mate.
We've had quite a lot of people who played for Clough through the years. You mentioned there, they all seem to have a different kind of relationship with him in terms of how he handled them. What was he like with you, especially being so young when you first got to know him? Was he like a big father figure with the arm around the shoulder then to build you up, from what you're saying?
He was scary. He was scary. He treated me, all I can say is that he treated me like he was treating his first team players. And not until, maybe I joined Forest at 16, I realised why he was doing that. He believed in the talent that I had as a young player. He was telling me, he was telling people, he was telling the press what a good player I was, what a good player I was going to be for Nottingham Forest, and what future I had in the game. So listen, in no way at the age of 14 did he treat me like a little boy. And you've probably heard this before from the other players. It was sink or swim with the gaffer. If you didn't swim with him, it was a case of goodbye. And I realised that from a young age. So I had a good head on my shoulders. I come from a fantastic family. Obviously, my dad had played professional football, and he sort of knew what the game was all about. But I don't think myself, my dad, my family had ever witnessed anybody like the gaffer and Peter Taylor, to be honest with you. But Alan Hill and Liam O'Kane, and who were a massive part at Forest at the time, used to come down to Long Buckby all the time, and I didn't know they were coming, and all of a sudden I'd be playing, and there they were on the sideline watching me play again, and they obviously believed in what I was about, believed in me, and just made me feel special. I went on trial at Leicester, I went on trial at Derby, I went on trial at Northampton, which was my local club, because it's where I came from. But there was no way I was ever going anywhere other than Forest. And little did I know when I was 14, or probably did anybody know, that Forest were going to go on and win the league, get promoted number one, and then go and win the first division in the first season, and then get into Europe. They didn't know that. Maybe the gaffer did, because that's the way he was, because that's what he wanted. And I just became part of it. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, what were the other players like with you? This young upstart kid around them, were they good to you, or were they harder on you because you were a bit younger than the rest of them at that time?
The first team players.
Yeah, the first team. When you break in at 16, 17, 18, how do they treat you?
Same as them, same as anybody else. That was the beauty of it. I think that was the magic of it. I think that was the answer to it all, that I was treated no different. The only thing that was different, that I was young. They still call me young Millsy. And compared to some of them now, I am. I'll be 60 this. I'll be 60 this year, and some of them are in the 70s. And I got treated no different. If we had a kitty to go out for a drink, then I used to have the kitty, and I was the youngest. I was the one who had to get the drinks in. So that was my big part of being young. Other than that, if I didn't do what I should be doing on the football field, then listen, they told me, like they told the teammates, they didn't feel sorry for me. The fact that I was 16, and even at 14, I was playing with first team players that were playing in the reserves, and if they didn't feel, I was doing my job, but I loved that. That's what made me and turned me into the player I was at 16, to be able to go and play against Arsenal at the age of 16 and make my debut, and then be playing in Europe in the European Cup side at the age of 16. That couldn't happen by just turning up at Forest at 16 and being an apprentice. That was built on over the 2 years, not just the management, but the coaching staff, the whole club, and the players. I used to go up and train with the first team. I trained with the first team at the age of 14/15, and Larry Lloyd made it very, very clear that he didn't like players going past them. He made it very, very clear, and I'll tell a little story in the book that I'm bringing out about him, so it's one to read about. But he took no prisoners, and at the age of 14, I was one that he wasn't too happy about, and he certainly let me know.
You're kind of best known for Forest for your breakthrough for the 1980 European Cup final, but like you say, you played a lot of big games before then, and you thought you were involved in the 79 Cup final as well. Was that that must have been a painful one to take, I guess, mustn't it? From reading, I read that you were meant to be on the bench, weren't you? Even so young, that must have been pretty gutting for you.
Yeah, it was, because I wasn't a 17-year-old that was brought into the squad because of injuries or anything less. I've been part of Forest from, like I say, from the age of 14. I made my debut at 16, so I was part of that squad. I was part of that team. The year I made my debut against Arsenal, we hadn't won a game that season, and at the start of the season, and I was brought into the side because the gaffer wanted to shake it up, and we beat Arsenal 2-1. Then we beat Liverpool on the Wednesday, where I sat on the bench. Then, I scored my first goal at Leeds, a game that we won. I went to White Hart Lane playing against Ossie Ardiles in the middle of the park, who had won the World Cup that summer. And he got substituted that game. I played against him, and the accolades I was getting, and I didn't feel any nerves. I didn't feel out of it. I didn't feel inferior. So I got treated no different to anybody else. Believe me, from the management down to the players. I
suppose one thing I wonder about when you talk about the self-belief and everything is the flip side of that is getting carried away. I mean, if the 16-year-old is coming through now, they're earning 70 grand a week. They've got endorsement deals. They're all over social media and Instagram. I mean, it was a different way for you, obviously, but there was still the element of keeping your feet on the ground, wasn't there? Not believing your own hype. How did you do that?
Through my family, through my friends, through the management at Forest. You know, I'm a dad myself now, and you learn how to do that. You learn how to discipline your children. You learn how to bring them up in the right way, with a respectful way. And but I'm a human being, Matt. You know, I'm a human being that I was playing, you know, league champions at the age of 16 and playing in the European Cup at the age of 16, and you know, part of the squad that went and won the European Cup in 79, and on the bench until 2 hours before the game. And I could have been 35 because I was devastated, and I wanted to know why he took me off the bench, because I thought I deserved to be on the bench at the age of 17. And that's not me being cocky, or because I just felt good enough to do that, and felt part of a squad of players that was a small squad, as you know, back in them days, 16 players, maybe 17 players. So I was a big part of that. So I was gutted that day, but I'd played my part. I'd been on the bench. I'd played in the earlier round, and to come off the bench in the final, you know, was devastating for me. Little did I know, 12 months later, although the manager told me that my turn would come, little did I know, or probably did he know at the time, it would be 12 months later.
Before we come to that game, one last question. A lot of players seem to have disagreements with Clough. I mean, we had Brian Laws on last week, and he had a fierce disagreement with him over the 1991 FA Cup final. But players absolutely loved him no matter what. They would, you know, I mean, obviously he fell out with some, but did you feel the same? You know, that you would run through a brick wall for the guy still?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because he got the best out of everybody. He got the best out of every player that wanted to play for him. Some players left because they couldn't handle what he was like as a manager, as a person. But it was about being successful. As a player, it's about being successful. Today's game is different. You know, the money in the game is ridiculous. And we talk about how it spoilt it and the rest of it, which is another conversation. But you know, to play for him with the success that we had, for me, from the age of 14 to the age of 18, and 2 European Cups by the time I was 18. Because people say to me, "Oh, you won the European Cup in 1980." I went, "Yeah, but I won it in 1979 as well." So I had 2 European Cup wins under my belt at the age of 18. Being part of playing with unbelievable players, and people will look at the players in the Forest side then that, you know, some were going nowhere, and became internationals and top internationals, and it come from the management. I've managed now for 20 odd years, and you know, you either man manage or you don't man manage. You man manage to get the best out of your players, and to make them better. And I've had the joy of a lot of non-league players going to play in the Football League, which has been so much joy to me, because I know what it was like. So listen, without doubt, look, don't get me wrong. I've had my fallouts with him. I've had my good times with him. I've had one-to-ones with him with a drink, which have been unbelievable. And you think about these times, and you think about, you know, the joy you have now. I mean, I get older, the older I get, and they say it's true. The older you get, the more it means. And I talk about it now, and friends that I've made over the years, and I've lived in Nottingham, stayed in Nottingham, married Sue, my wife, who's a Nottingham girl, and stayed. And friends who are massive Forest supporters, do you want to come for a pint, Gary? And they just love sitting and listening to the stories. And when I say stories, I always think stories is almost like it's not the truth. When you tell them the truth of what went on, they don't believe you. They don't believe the way we train. They don't believe some of the things we've done. They don't believe that we could have gone and had the success that we had, the way that we went about things. But we did. The proof is there. The memories are there. The history is there, and no one can ever take that away.
Did you believe the way they trained? You were so young, you probably didn't know any different, but they didn't. Training sounded very chilled out and not much work on set pieces. And, the gaffer wasn't around for any of the sessions by the sound of it. It was an unusual setup, but it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, listen, you say not much work on set pieces, no work on set pieces. No work on set pieces. My introduction to training at Forest with the first team was running through a load of stinging nettles to touch the fence, and
I've heard that one.
The last one back to the gaffer, and it's true.
Yeah.
and the players used to run towards the stinging nettles and pulling the shorts down to the knees and pulling the socks up to the knees so they didn't get stung. And then it was a case of, once you got back from coming back through the stinging nettles to the last one in the goal, and you used to have like 16 players all in the goal, and your face against the net, and I don't know. It was, like you say, I hadn't witnessed professional training methods or coaching. If the gaffer was still alive and listening to this conversation, and I used the words coaching, he would give me the biggest rollicking ever, because he never used to like the word coaching. He told me many times what coaching was and what coaching was all about. Everything was simple. Nothing was confused. He just got the best out of you. And, to the extent that we didn't do... I played down the middle as a striker, and I played right wing in a 4-4-2. But I wasn't showed in a 4-4-2 on the right-hand side. Through coaching methods and doing shape. We never done shape. My job was to get them down the line and get forward and create chances and get the odd goal if I could at the back post. And when we were defending, it was to get back and out your fullback. Simple as that. Simple as that.
Now, I really must ask about the European 1980 Cup final, because I haven't asked you yet. One thing I wanted to ask about, it was just the scale of the achievement. I mean, you're so young. You've got enough miles on the clock now to appreciate it. Could you take it all in at the time, that what you'd done when you're so young? Did it sink in?
Yeah, it did. And purely because of what I've just said, Matt, that I'd been part of it for not just 2 years from the age of 16. I'd been part of it from the age of 14. Like I say, I used to come up from 14, 15 and not train with the youth team, but I used to train with the first team. So I'd been part of it. So again, it didn't faze me. It didn't daunt me. It didn't surprise me that I got my chance to take the shirt of Trevor. Listen, I'm not. Everybody knows if Trevor hadn't, ruptured his Achilles, snapped his Achilles, that the chances are that I would have been on the bench. But Trevor did, and to be the next in line to take Trevor's shirt that night was an incredible feeling for me. I didn't take anybody's shirt. It was Trevor Francis, England international, scored the winning goal the year before in the European Cup final. Great man, great player. But I just had to go out and do the job that he would have done and just as well. And I played down at Arsenal. I'd had a couple of games, I think about 4 games after Trevor had got injured, and they played me and showed me that I was the man that was going to go and get Trevor's shirt that night. So no, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't, this is the team. You know, Gary Mills is wearing number 10. I almost knew that I was going to be doing that, and was ready for it. What I wasn't ready for was when we started, after a few minutes, I was asked to go and play another position that we hadn't worked on, which we never done. And get back in here and play this position. Where, Gaffer? Just get back in here and play that position. And like every player at Forest, and you know, Forest supporters and a lot of people have a lot of say about that final when we beat Hamburg, who were big favourites and one of the top teams in Europe at the time. That say we were lucky. We make no mistake, we weren't lucky. One of our best performances ever, and there's different ways of winning football matches, and defending is one of them. It's an art, and we defended as a team that night that you won't see a better defensive performance. If you can name a better one, certainly in a prestigious final like the European Cup final. So we won that game, thoroughly deserved to win that game. And as Schultz would say, he pulled off a few good saves, but that's what he's there for. And that's what the gaffer would say. That's what he pays him for. You know, I tell my players now that you can work and work and work and work. They wear things now where it tells them how many miles they've run. Well, if we wore such a thing that night in May back in 1980, then I think Gary Birtles would have run 5 marathons. I probably would have run 3 marathons. We never stopped running without touching the ball, by the way, Matt. But we stopped Hamburg playing. We stopped them passing it to their man in the box. We stopped it. We stopped them crossing the ball into our box. We stopped them from creating more chances than what they did create to go and beat us. We won 1-0 that night by a man called John Robertson scoring an unbelievable goal from the edge of the box. It was a great performance to go and win our second European Cup.
Yeah, I get the impression. I mean, Gary Birtles is a great friend of this podcast. He's on all the time. I get the impression that was the proudest game of his career, and he often mentions how you left him to do all his running up front. Yeah. He's brought that up a few times. What were the celebrations like? Because we've had people on here before say that Clough didn't always go overboard with the celebrations. Was it a bit different that night? Did you really enjoy it, or were you straight back to business and focusing on whatever came next?
Well, all I can say to you is we celebrated before the final.
He likes you to relax, yeah.
Well, we had a nice week away in Mallorca, which was a holiday, not a training session. And then we had to go back and play Connect 4 with a little bite to eat, and be together and not with anybody else. So we say now, or I certainly say, you know, we're probably one of the only clubs to celebrate a European Cup win before the game was even played, because the celebration was not what it should have been or could have been or what the gaffer would let it be. So it was different, but it was the gaffer, you know, it was the gaffer. What I did know is that we had our medal with us, we had the cup with us, and that's what mattered. You know, then what I do know is the next day we flew back from Madrid. Then we ended up in the nightclub Madison's, which people back in them days would know all about, and we celebrated together. Then I went and celebrated with my family, and we celebrated in our own way. It was, and then we come back in July to start to go for another season. So, Matt, let me tell you, I know people talk about it and people deal with it in different ways, but like I said before, I shouldn't keep saying it, but I'm 60 this year, and it means more every year. It means more every year, and I'm a bit of a soppy git when it comes to certain programs on TV. I shed a few tears, and I watched the Forest program on ITV not too long ago about winning in Europe, and I sat there on my own in my living room crying my eyes out. My medal, every so often I'll go on my medal and I'll give it that, and people might say, "What? Come on." I've got the medal, and no one can ever take that away. So whatever happens in football today, regards money wise or anything, they can't take away that medal, and winning it twice. So fantastic.
Yeah, there's not many people that have got them. I don't blame you for keeping it close and giving it the odd kiss every now and then.
Yeah.
I want to move on a bit because there's so much of your career to cover. I wanted to try and get a few more bits in. You left in 1982, quite an unusual destination in Seattle. How did that come about, and what was it like playing over there in the States?
Fantastic. It was an English-based side over in Seattle. Peter Ward went with me. I was at Forest at the time. Things didn't really go how Peter wanted it to, or how the gaffer wanted things to work out with Peter. He was 26, I believe. I was 20. Over in Seattle, Steve Daly, who was a massive, apart from Trevor Francis, became one of the highest fees going for a player to Man City. Roger Davis, Derby County, Alan Hudson, Chelsea. Now, look, we talk about players when I was young. I used to watch Alan Hudson play, and he was a dream. And then all of a sudden, I was playing with him in the middle of midfield at Seattle. So it was incredible, and people perceive what America's like and all the razzmatazz and everything that went with it. But with all that, it was a tough league. It was an unbelievable league. Without doubt, would have held our own in the first division, in my opinion. Certainly, New York Cosmos would have been up there if not winning it, in the top three of the division. It was a tough league with great players, and to be part of that again, and I'm still only 20, was a fantastic time for me. I had to go out there as a young man, if you like, and look after myself. Pete's wife came out. I was there sort of on my own, if you like, living on my own. So it was a big ask for me back in them days. But because of what happened to me before, again, I just felt I could have been 30, but I was 20. And, a big part of a Seattle side that went all the way to Soccer Bowl that season, and lost to New York Cosmos that, had unbelievable players playing for them. I don't know. I'm sighing because it's still at this age I'm at now hard to take in what I achieved, what I was doing at that age. But it was a big decision for me to go to Seattle. It was one that, again, I don't want to keep bringing this up, but I do. I'm bringing a book out, and it explains everything in there, why I went and how it went from there, really.
Just one quick one on Seattle. There's probably more in the book about this, but what's the lifestyle like? I know Seattle's not LA in terms of climate, but it's a different world to Nottingham. What's it like just living in America for a year or two?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people. Love the English. Made us very, very welcome. I got sort of introduced to coffee because that's where coffee got, well, it started in Seattle with Starbucks, and I was tasting this beautiful coffee over, because we used to have tea here, didn't we? In England, somebody had coffee. It was very, very rare. Apart from my brother, we used to have 5 cups of coffee in my house and 5 cups of tea and 1 cup of coffee for my brother. And I couldn't understand why he drank coffee. But when I went to Seattle, I fell in love with the coffee. It was lovely. But it was a great city, 100,000 seater stadium, indoor seater stadium where Seattle Sounders played. It was built on lakes. It was on the water. It's the furthest you can go to get to America from here. The climate, like you say, is very similar to England, but it seemed to be warm generally most of the time I was there. Drive-throughs. What's a drive-through? There was no such thing as a drive-through when I lived here. I went to America and I had this 5-litre sports car, an apartment with a swimming pool and a sauna to use, and I was still only 20. I'd never experienced anything like this. So, incredible. You go and play New York Cosmos, Carlos Alberto, Johan Neeskens, to name just a couple that I'd seen play in the World Cup. Gary Mills, born in Northampton, playing for Nottingham Forest, is now playing against these. And 2 European Cups and now a Soccer Bowl final against New York Cosmos, and still only 20. So it wasn't bad.
You were back at Forest by 1983 via a loan spell at Derby, which is another unusual kind of path to tread. How did you end up back at Forest, and did you have any doubts about going back for a second time or not?
Read the book. I can't. I said to you, Matt, when I come on, I'm going to be very, very careful what I say, because it's interesting how people perceived my career at Forest and what happened. It's a very interesting read, let's say. I was at Forest a lot of years. Some people like say I had 2 spells. Some people say I had 1 spell. So it's an interesting situation that I found myself in. The last place, or the last club I ever thought I was going to be playing for at the age of 20, coming back from America, was Derby County. But there was a reason for it. What I didn't anticipate was an FA Cup tie against Nottingham Forest in my club, by the way. Nottingham Forest, my club. Playing against them in the 3rd round of the FA Cup for Derby County, along with another ex-player. I was going to say old player, but Archie probably wouldn't be too happy me saying that. Also playing in the Derby side that day.
Do you feel like I'll call it a second spell at Forest. I think that you had another 3 or 4 decent, solid years there where the team was good, but you never hit the same heights. Was the second spell, was it a bit, anticlimactic's not the word. Was it a bit different? Was it not quite the same to be there around that time as a player?
No, look, I think this is the thing, Matt. The club had won the championship. They won 2 European Cups. They won League Cups. And then people saying it wasn't quite as good, quite as the same. Well, it still wasn't bad, I think what people don't talk about enough is how the UEFA Cup was taken away from us. It was stolen. It was me now. Hurts so much, we talk about winning the European Cup at Forest. And on the end of that, we don't know for certain, but we'd have had to beat Spurs in the final. But that could have been talked about as well. So the success with the side that we had then could have been quite easy. Yes, it's not a European Cup, it's the UEFA Cup, but it was a massive, massive cup to go and win again in Europe. So I think those years were good. I think, yes, there was change. And yes, you'd have heard about, certainly the players feel that the team was broke up too early. And I think it was, there's no two ways about that. But it happened, and you have to move forward, and good players were coming through. I think that's the big thing, as a young player, I was given the chance, and then the young players like Des Walker, just to name one, were coming through the system that, were excellent players for the club, and they were good years. Apart from people that don't live in the real world and thought we should be winning the league every year because of the success we've had, it was still success. And on a personal note, certainly the last couple of years for me at Forest before I left, I feel were my best years in consistency. And in the way that I played. I was playing virtually week in, week out. I'd grown up, I'd obviously got older, but I still wasn't old. I was middle 20s still, but playing my best football at Forest, and it was a good side. We brought the likes of Stuart Pearce into the club. I don't have to talk about what the fans think of Stuart, and some of the players, Johnny Metog, and real good players. We were still a good side, so still there was still success there to finish where we finished in what was a tough league, and I was a big part of that. So yeah, those 4 years were massive, and I didn't want to leave. But that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, you left at the same time as, I think you left, correct me if I'm wrong, the same time as Birtles and Bowyer and guys like that. You all got shipped out, and you went to Notts, and then you went to Leicester and had a lot of good years, a success there. I mean, which club, you said earlier, your club, do you consider Forest to be your club then, even though you had so many good years basically you played for all the East Midlands clubs, notably you had good years at Leicester. Is Forest your club really in your heart?
Forest will always be, what Forest done for me and in my heart was incredible. It's hard to put into words. It was a time for me that if I could go back, I'd love to do all again. The people I met, the club it was, the success we had. People love talking about it now. So to be part of something that people love to talk about now, want to hear about, and want to find out how it happened and how did it happen, and you were part of that. And people introduce me sometimes as Forest legend. To be called a legend at any club, because you was part of what you achieved, and part of what the club done then of course. But there's a but there, because I went to Notts, and I loved my time at Notts. I won Player of the Year my first year. I played every single game, 60 games. Didn't miss a minute that year, and it was great for me. And then I went to a club called Leicester City, and had 5 years that, oh my God, it was. I played 232 games in 5 years. I still hold the record for 61 games of consecutive games. Didn't miss a game. 3 playoff Wembley finals. Captained the side. So consistently, I know I was older and at the right years from it, but I played in incredible football personally. I felt at Leicester, and felt and the rapport I had with the fans there and the football club was incredible. So, you know, because of the years and for different reasons, Forest and Leicester, I've got two massive hearts.
You had such a good career, but one thing I wonder is these days England caps aren't given out like confetti; they're earned. But there's players like Jude Bellingham and Jadon Sancho, and you go back to Micah Richards, and you'll get players who were given a chance as teenagers to do what you did when you were so young. Do you think maybe you deserve the chance to represent your country based on the career you had, especially so young, so successful?
Yeah, I certainly had the confidence. I certainly believed. I certainly believed in myself that I could go and do that. I was fortunate enough to play for England schoolboys. I was fortunate enough to play for England youth, and I was fortunate enough to play for England under 21s, which was the format in those days. And I was fortunate enough to be told by the gaffer at Forest that, you know, you're going to go, you'll play for the full international. And I was fortunate enough to, and still fortunate enough to have the paper cuttings from the media where the gaffer was telling them that I should be in the full international side, and so that's what he thought about me, and unfortunately that never happened for me, you know. But I don't think going to America helped that. I don't think that helped my cause. I don't know whether it would have happened or not. And let me say, you know, now people say don't have any regrets. I've got no regrets. No regrets. I loved every minute of my football where I went and played, whatever club it was at, because that's the type of man I was. You know, and now, and you've asked me a tough question about, you know, your club. They're all my club for different reasons, but, you know, the obvious stands out for obvious reasons. But I feel if that was going to happen to me, to get a full international cap, that, you know, if I look back, then maybe going to America didn't help that cause. So, well, it didn't help because the fact that the second year I went back for my second year there, for my second season, that I had an horrific break in my leg at the age of 21. And it's true. You think it's the end. You think it's the end, Matt. You know, and there's something that. Can you just bear with me 1 second? I think I know where it is. Just bear with me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is a rod that I had in my. Can you see it? Where am I?
I can. Yeah, yeah. That was inside your leg.
That was inside my leg. When I broke my leg in America, and I keep that because I always little things, and I always feel it saved my career, because it was almost like America were advanced. I know we broke my leg, certainly, and it was an horrific break, by the way. It wasn't just a broken leg; it was a bad one. And I laid there in the stadium thinking at 21 that this is the end. They put my leg back together in America, and it didn't work. And the second time I went back and they inserted this in the middle of my tibia, not fibula, the tibia. And I played with that when I came back from Forest. When I came back to Forest and played with that inside my leg, and the doctor and the physio used to panic every time, because they said if anything ever happened to me again, a broken leg with that inside me, then it would be horrendous. But I keep it with me still, you know, because it means so much. And I broke my leg again. About a year later, and that's when I had this taken out of my tibia. So it was another major reason why my career changed slightly, because I was out of the game for a year. But you know what? And I say this to people, and they think, you can't be telling the truth. For this to happen to me really made me sit back and think. I was 21, had 2 European Cups, a soccer bowl final, England schoolboys, England youth, England under the 21s. And it all could have come to an abrupt end. But I was so determined that wasn't going to be the case. And I managed to go on to play till the age of 48 because I kept thinking back. And I wanted to carry on playing. And that leg break was a major reason why I carried on playing.
Did it make you a lesser player, do you think, or did it take something away from your game in terms of mobility, or were you just as good as you would have been even after the leg breaks?
Not that I know of, and not for 1 second do I think I didn't go on to play where I could have played or played higher, or if I hadn't broke my leg. I was quick, you know. I had some pace. Larry Lloyd told me, you know, one day when I went past him, and whether I lost that, a little bit of that, I don't really know. I don't really know, but I wouldn't like to think so. I never felt that it did. I never blamed it. I never said I was never quite the same player, or I thought I was a better player, actually. I thought I was a better player because it made me realise it turned me into some, or not turned me into something, because I was who I was anyway, but it helped me realise. It helped me realise. So I don't think so. Matt. No, I don't think it affected me in any way at all.
I just wanted to spend the last few minutes talking about management. You've had, like you say, 20 good years in management. Most recently, the bulk of them in non-league. What's your experience of non-league like? Because I was saying before we started recording how my career in sports journalism started there, and it's like great clubs, great fans, great people, but it did feel like the Wild West at times at some of these clubs. What's your experience of managing at that level like?
Beautiful. It's lovely. Listen. I love the game, and you know, if people are listening to this, oh, here we go. I do. It's been in my blood. I still love the game for what it is. I don't. I'm old school. You know, I'm old school, and people say, "Well, what's old school?" The discipline, the morals, the simplicity. You know, my wife Sue, you know, all this technology, and I'll moan about it. She says, "Oh, you're so old-fashioned," and I says, "Yeah, but I love it. I love being old-fashioned. I love everything that goes with it. I loved that playing when I played at Forest, because at Forest, you know, when the game finished, we used to go in the Jubilee Club where the fans were, and win, lose or draw. Obviously, in the early days, it was mainly win. But we used to have a pint with them, you know, and we used to walk around the streets of Nottingham and go into shops or into a pub and have a drink, and we'd talk to the fans, and I thought it was beautiful. And you know what? That's still the case in non-league, and that's why I like it. I've been lucky enough to manage some clubs that have been Football League, and I've managed to get York City back into the Football League, or I did manage to get York City back into the Football League. That was a great feeling. So I love non-league. You know, I love. I've been lucky enough to manage at the highest level of non-league, which is lovely. You know, one of my old clubs now, Notts County, are in there, so they'll know themselves. They've got a chance of getting out this year now. They've had a good run and got themselves in the playoffs, but they'll know how hard and how tough this league is. But you're still with the fans, you know, and I just feel players now don't interact with the fans. It's not the same. And again, this might be me being old fashioned, but I thought it was beautiful, and that's why I love about the non-league. It's beautiful.
Management's a tough game at any level, especially where you are. I mean, you know, you like say managing in the conference, it's blooming hard to get out of that league. Yeah. Corby now. I mean, I see. Is it one of the teams in your league just signed Marcus Maddison, who was at Peterborough? I know he's had some personal problems, but there's obviously money, you know, there to support their manager. It's a tough old world, isn't it? Non-league still.
It is, and you know the thing. I sold Marcus Maddison from Gateshead to Peterborough. And he's one of the players I got so much satisfaction from. When I went to Gateshead as manager, he was last on the training field. He used to have his hands down his shorts. He used to come with a lollipop in his mouth. And he was that unprofessional, it was frightening. And one day we played away at Chester. And the game had only been going 5 minutes. And I said to Darren Caskey, who was my assistant, I said, get him off. It was almost like he just wanted the ball for himself. There should have been 2 balls on the pitch after 5 minutes, that it was just all about him. So I took him off after 5 minutes, and he went straight down the tunnel. So I said to Cass, go and get him out of the tunnel, get him back up here. And he brought him out, and I think he was expecting me to give him a big rollicking. I said, come and stand with me. And he stood there, and I put my arms around him. I said, you're going to play in the Football League one day. And he went, you've just taken me off, Gaffer. I says, I know, but you're not listening to me. I said, you're going to go and play in the Football League one day. And he went, well, not if you keep taking me off after 5 minutes. I says, well, that's got to be down to you then, mate. You know, and not too long after that, Barry Fry gave me a call and asked me about Marcus, and we sold him for a lot of money for Gateshead, and you know, he's gone and done well for Peterborough, and they're in our league now that he's gone and signed for Spalding. He's gone and signed for them, and I'm like, what is he doing? So I think I need to probably have another word with him, actually. I don't know. At the age of 27, I'm reading he's fallen out of love with the professional game. You know, so he might want to be back in it after playing every other week at Spalding's ground. I'm not too sure, but we'll see.
Is there an element of Clough in that story from in terms of man management, the way he built you up? Was that something you took from Clough? Would you, if you hadn't played for Clough, would you have handled that situation the way you did, do you think?
No, I probably wouldn't. You know, like I say, when I've missed out on jobs, because when you go for an interview, they're asking you to do all sorts of things. They want to see things on a board. They want to see you do a PowerPoint describing how you manage and describing this. And I just say, look, you know, I'm a simple man. I'm a simple manager, and you know, the game's always been simple for me, and it's been successful in non-league and the way that I've done it, and that's what matters most. So, you know, I am who I am. I am who I am, and yes, make no mistake, Matt. Look, no one could ever copy the Gaffer, because you couldn't. Simple as, you know. But you know, I played under Brian Clough. I played under John Barnwell. I played under Neil Warnock. I played under Howard Kendall. Played under Brian Little. To name just a few. And you learn from all of them. But David Pleat, another one, you know, he signed me at Leicester. But the man management of the Gaffer was unbelievable. Was unbelievable. And you know, I started to learn what that was back then at an early age. So if any, I'm at Corby now, but any chairman sitting listening to this, man management is massive, massive, massive. And I'm a man manager. I'm not an obsessive coach that people get carried away with now. Players like me have to know the jobs. That's not difficult to do a job, whether you're a centre half or whether you're a centre forward. As the gaffer used to say, if you're a centre forward, I'll pay you to edit in the net. If you're a centre half, I pay you to edit out the 18-yard box. And so the man management for me, I love getting the best out of players. And that talk to Marcus then was massive for me, because I wanted to give him a kick up the backside, and I wanted to give him such a rollicking that day. But that's what he was expecting. So it's the unexpected that was always something that was massive at Forest. When you're expecting a rollicking, you didn't get it. When you was expecting praise, you got a rollicking. And it was all part of making you the person and the player that you were.
Last one before I let you plug your book. You've given us your time for free for so long, which we appreciate. What does the future hold for you? You're 45 years coming up in the game. You love the game still. What's the kind of final aspirations for you of what you want to achieve still?
Well, at this moment in time, I want to get Corby promoted. I want to get Corby into the conference. I've been out the game for a couple of years. I had a new hip a couple of years ago, and I couldn't get myself back to the level of management. I'm not daft, and I'm not talking the Premiership or Championship, but I'm a good non-league manager, stroke League Two manager, and that's me. And I've done well at it. I say I got York promoted. I got Gateshead to the playoff final, lost to Cambridge. I was devastated when we lost that. So I nearly got them into the Football League. So I just want to achieve. I just want to get the best out of myself. I just want to keep enjoying it. Once I lose the enjoyment and the buzz, what the game has brought me and bringing me still, then I will pack in. Gutted, I think, maybe because I'm old school, that I couldn't get a football club to employ me to get them back into the Football League from the conference. So Corby have given me that chance. It's the lowest I've ever managed, but it's a cracking little club with ambition, and I'm enjoying getting the best out of players that didn't know they could play as well as they can. So just keep enjoying it. Want to get back to the conference because I love that league. It's where I work best. So hopefully it can be with Corby in 3 years. If it's not with Corby, and someone comes in and fancies are giving me a go, then I'm ready to go again. But the enjoyment and the love of it and the buzz of it, you've got to have that buzz. You've got to have that desire and that buzz to be successful and get the best out of yourself. And I've still got that.
One of the pitfalls of these podcasts is you can only scrape the surface of someone's life, but like you say, you've got a book coming out which will have the whole chapters all put together. So can tell people about the book and when you're hoping it's coming out and when people can get it. Yeah,
it's for about 3 years now. I've had a few people saying to me, "I'd like to do your book, Gary," and I've never thought, do people really want to read about me, about my career, and who I am and what I've achieved and what I haven't achieved and what I should have achieved, or how come I ended up here and ended up there, and I sort of said no initially, and then about 18 months ago I was asked the same question, and well, actually, I would first sort of give me I live in Radcliffe-on-Trent, and I was doing my garden on the front of my house, and this gentleman walked past, and he says, "It's Gary, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." He went, "Are you ever going to bring a book out?" He says, I'm a massive Notts County supporter. he says, I really want to read about your career. And I said, well, no, I've never bought a book out. And literally within weeks, I was asked again to do it. And I thought, well, maybe some people just might be interested. And as I've gone through doing my book, I've actually found it quite interesting myself. I thought, I didn't do bad, actually. I didn't do bad. And you know, the other side of it, I've seen, you know, from the top down to the lower side of it in management, you know, and playing for different clubs and experiencing different managers. And so I've got my own stories because, you know, the Cloughy stories, people would have heard them and, you know, so well, I've heard that one so many times and stuff, but I've got my own, you know, and I've got plenty of stories in there that I'm telling, and you know, you got to be as honest as you can be and tell it how it was and the way it went about. So I'm really enjoying doing the book, to be honest, and it's bringing a smile to my face, and I've taken so much satisfaction, you know, from the life I've had in football, and it is about my life, you know, life in football. It's about that, and how lucky I've been to be part of that. But you know, with that luck comes hard work and dedication, because people perceive that if you're a footballer or you end up in management, that you're lucky. You know, you don't work. You're just in football. Well, believe me, you do have to work at it, and you do have to work hard at it. And you do have to take the knocks. You do have to make sacrifices, a lot of sacrifices. And all these are going to be in my book, and you know, it's something I'm hopefully going to be proud of, and hopefully, you know, people that do read it will enjoy reading it.
And you're hoping it'll be out before the end of the year? That's the plan?
Yeah, the plan is, yeah, for hopefully September time that'll be coming out, and you know, people, like I say, certainly the East Midlands, where, you know, I played for the 4 clubs, that, you know, they might find it quite interesting that how things went. And you've asked me a couple of questions tonight that I can't really answer because I want people to see the answers in the book. And you know, there's going to be things that people say, "Well, I didn't know that," or "I didn't know that," which is quite nice. But it's easy reading that football fans will hopefully like reading.
I'm sure they will. There's been some great insight today, hearing your story, or like we say, just scraping the top of it, really. There's so much to talk about, but we appreciate your time. We'll be back next week with a different guest that's lined up, not a player, but a fan of note with Forest. So that was another one to look forward to. Do give us a good rating and a good review, as that really helps us to see more people listening and watching to this. Gary, thank you very much for being so generous with your time. We really appreciate it. It's been great hearing from you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.